ऑडियन्स म्हणजे त्यांना म्हणतात कॅप्टिव्ह ऑडियन्स म्हणजे ज्या ऑडियन्सला पकडून ठेवलं गेलेलं असतं ऑल ऑफ युअर कॅप्टिव्ह ऑडियन्स. जेव्हा मी इकडे आलो तेव्हा मला सांगितलं की अरे वा थोडं लिहून घे कागदावर, otherwise you'll go there, you'll forget things and make an ass of yourself. So I wrote down few things. Unfortunately, I forgot the paper. So whatever is going to come out is spontaneous. I know a lot of people from you might have been to Saudi Arabia, so if you want to join in, feel free. This is not one-way traffic. You can join in, you can tell your experiences as well. Because it's coming offhand, there is nothing planned. So I request once my 10 minutes of glory are over, please tell me that I should step down, and I step down. I was there for about 3 years in Saudi Arabia. So if you take away the holidays and annual leave, then it comes to around 1001 nights and days as well. The nights I cannot remember because I was asleep. The days I do remember. But the allure of 1001 Arabian Nights always brings back memories of childhood when you have heard stories of Shehrazade, Ali Baba, Sindbad the Sailor. And Saudi Arabia was like that. And when I went there, I was quite captivated by the country because no one had been there. You heard very few things about the country. Some of them interesting, some of them scary. But all of them capture your imagination. And it did capture the imagination many decades ago when Lawrence of Arabia came back and wrote his memoirs. And I don't know whether it is true, but a lot of American and British girls did go to Arabia to spend some days with the Arabian princes, having heard of their chivalry and the way they look at life and the rugged way of life. So I did some research before going there to find out where am I actually going. It was a place called Najran, close to Yemen. History went back to around 4,000 years. People had been living there. It's mentioned in the Quran as well as the pit or Al-Hudud. The story goes that there was a king there who did not believe in God, and whoever believed in God was put into the pit of fire and burnt alive. And after I went there, I did go to Al-Hudud, and the place does exist. And the place does show signs of a big fire. You can find pieces of bone, pottery and inscriptions, and really interesting. I had also heard other stories. That year before I went, in the first 6 months, they had beheaded 40 people. So I thought whether it's a good idea going there because 40 people have lost their lives. So I had heard that they cut off your hands if you steal, and eye for an eye and life for a life. And I thought, well, they cut off so many things. What happens if someone commits infidelity or someone rapes someone? What do they cut off? And I thought, no, it can't be true. But if some of you have not understood, when Atre was once giving a talk, and he was standing like this, like me, with both hands in his pockets, and people started giggling. So he realized, he said, what's in your mind is not in my hands. So, well, they don't do that, but the punishment is quite harsh. Infidelity is punished quite harsh. You are made to leave the country, and the women face it much harder than the men do. Your hair are shaved off, you are brought back to your place of work, and you receive lashings. And lashings are interesting as well because lashings are given according to the crime you have done. So the degrees can go from lashing with just a flick of the wrist. You can have with your elbow, shoulder, and if it's something more, then you get the full flow of the lash, and you have to take them. So people would get 50 lashes, 100 lashes, 150 lashes, and they have to be taken. If you are not fit for them, your family has to take it because your family did not take care of you. That's why you did the crime. So, as an orthopedic surgeon, we would see patients who would be brought for fitness to see whether they can take lashes or not. So many times, just to be kind to them, we would say, well, he's got arthritis, he's got spondylosis, so he can't. But what I didn't know was, then the younger men in the family had to take the lashes. And sometimes the lashes are so harsh that people would faint. Then they couldn't continue. So they would be kept back and the lashes would be finished some other day. So generations would have to face lashes till everyone faces it till the number is given. If you kill someone, capital punishment. So you would die, and death usually was quite gory. It would be on a Friday afternoon after the afternoon prayers. The victim would be, or the culprit would be brought to the square, and there he would be beheaded in public, and people were invited. And someone was telling me a story of Edinburgh where about old robes being sold, so people would be invited to watch hangings. But I got a feeling that that was a paid thing. Well, this was not paid, this was free in Saudi Arabia. You could come and watch. And one of my friends went to watch it. I never went because he told me don't go because after that you will never be able to sleep once you see that. Hands were commonly cut off if you were a thief and they would be brought to us because the cuts would be quite harsh, so we had to fashion an amputation and heal the wounds. So some rules are harsh and you can believe once you go there, you can believe the harsh life which they live, and that is why the rules are such. Because they know their own people and they know what can happen in the deserts, and that's why these rules were brought about. And other places where you go where life is very hard, even if you go to northern part of India, the rules are quite harsh, and it's mainly because to protect people. For example, the wearing of abaya. Abaya is the cloth that women wear, black in color, and that's to cover their face and their body. And it's mainly to protect them from the eyes of men. Because in a desert, if someone knows that your wife is beautiful, when you are away, he can very well come and pick her up. So the abaya is a cultural thing, it's not a religious thing. In Mecca and Medina, no one has to wear an abaya. They just have to cover their head with any cloth. And before petrol, men used to work very hard. So women could go and work in the fields with men. But it's only a recent phenomenon. For the last 60 years or so, after petrol was discovered, men have nothing to do. There is lots of money. So they can do what they like. And they just pick up women. So before I went there, I was told, when you are getting into a taxi, here, you open the door for your wife. She gets in first. There, you get in first. And then your wife and your kids get in. Because if your wife gets in first, you can't be sure that the taxi driver will run away with her, kicking you away. They like women. But they like women who are big. And we had this nurse who was quite big, but good looking. And this Saudi male nurse of mine, friend of mine, he came and said, "Doctor, are you sure you're not going after her?" I said, "No." He said, "Wow, that's what we want." So they like big ones. And there was a Filipino nurse who was walking home after her duty, and a pickup truck came, and 4 Saudi men got out, and they tried to load her onto the truck to carry her away. But she was so big, they couldn't load her, and someone saw, and they came, and they took the girl away and saved her. So abayas again, different kinds. So abaya basically is there to hide your body from others or to hide yourself from others, but they can be used other way as well. So when my wife came there, she had to wear an abaya as well. So when she asked, I said, well, abayas are of 2 kinds. One, where you hide yourself, so you wear your abaya so you are not seen, and the other is where you use the abaya to show others what you have. So the Filipino nurses, they would wear skimpy clothes inside and walk with the abaya, but no buttons. Abaya was only just below the knee. They would hold the abaya in front of them, and as you are walking by, suddenly let go, so you get a glimpse and hold it back. So things can be used for what you want to use them for. So it's not the weapon which is dangerous, it is how you use it that is dangerous. So even the Saudi ladies, it was such a restricted life. To get out of the house on their own was impossible unless a male is accompanying them. So they wanted to keep the abaya, mainly because then nobody knows who this lady is. So if you are going with a lady who is wearing an abaya and covering her face, no policeman will ask you that I want to see her face. So he has to believe in what you say that she is my wife. So if a lady wants to go out with someone, she would go with an abaya, and the policeman would think that's his wife. It may not be, and that is how things went on. But the Saudi ladies as well, coming to hospital was an occasion for them, an occasion to meet people, so they would arrange their appointments so that their friends come as well. So ladies would sit separately and men would sit separately, and when you bring the patient in, both would enter through different doors and come to meet you. And the ladies especially wanted to show you that they are as modern as you. That was one occasion when they could show what they wear, how they behave, what they do at home. And each lady as she came, she would make a gesture just to slowly open the abaya and let you see the clothes she is wearing inside. And the younger ones especially would like to show you that they wear jeans, they wear shirts. They're just like that. So men are not different wherever you go. It's the culture only which changes you a bit, but the basic instincts are the same as they already are. You could never discharge a patient. So they would always say, give me an appointment after 6 months, after 1 year, but don't discharge me, because they want to come. It's one opportunity for the women to get out of the house and to meet people. Also, I had heard that, dislocation of the hip is very common in Saudi Arabia. So you see lots of patients. And once a Bedouin tribe came from far deep into the desert, they had heard about dislocation of hip, that it is common. And one of their children who was born recently had started walking and was not walking normally. So the orthopedic surgeons would know that someone with a dislocated hip would walk with a wobbling gait. So they brought him along, and when we saw the child, believe me, he was the only one with normal hips. The whole of the tribe had some or the other form of dysplasia. So they were all walking wobbly, and this was the guy who was walking straight. And in all walks of life, we see this over and over again, that if you are living with crooks, and if you are not a crook, you are the abnormal one. So you have to behave like society behaves. So, few things were told to me that, when you go to Saudi, because of the punishment is so hard, nobody will steal anything from you. And my uncle had been there before me. He told me that they had bought some gold, quite some amount of gold, and as they were shopping on, they forgot the bag of gold somewhere. And for 2 hours they were shopping, and then suddenly realized there's a bag missing, and it's the bag of gold. So petrified, they retraced their steps to all the shops they had gone, and finally reached the shop where they had forgotten their bag of gold. It was still there, where they had left it, untouched. No one would dare to touch it, because if caught, you lose your hands. And when I went to buy gold, I went into the souk. Now, that guy knew me because I was an orthopedic surgeon in that hospital. But in spite of that, he was catering to somebody else. So rather than asking me to wait, he threw me the key. Go and open the cupboard and have a look, the display cabinet. Yeah, you can see, doctor, you can see. So while he is looking after somebody else, I had this whole cabinet open in front of me with all the gold. So that's how they trust. And gold brings me back to another thing. You must have heard that they can marry 4 times. So that's true. In Saudi Arabia, the more money you have, you can have 4 wives at one time. If you want the 5th one, you divorce one. So you are with 3, you marry another. So no Saudi woman, married woman, would allow her husband to have a bank balance. As soon as there is money, spend it on gold. Because if you keep the money, you will bring someone else. So when my wife, so I reached there before my wife, and when she was going to come there, I thought, let's buy some gold for her. So one of my patients was a gold merchant. So I asked him, what's the current rate for gold? So he said, Mabruk. Mabruk means congratulations. I said, what for? Oh, you're getting married again. I said, no, I'm not. My wife's coming. I'm buying gold for her. No. You have to tell your wife, this is Saudi Arabia. The country you live in, you have to follow the rules. Get married again. I'll give you gold on discounted. So many, there were a few more proposals. One old man came and said that, I should marry his daughter. And I said, no, I can't. And he said, no, it's very simple. You get married, you are rich, you have the money, you get married again. I said, no. Then a very funny proposal. So this Saudi male nurse, good friend of mine, he comes and says, an excellent proposal for you. I said, what is this? He said, there's a young lady I know, extremely rich, divorcee. You get married to her. She's very rich. I said, but I don't want to. It's very nice. She's only 90 years old. I said, what? He said, only 90 years old. You get married to her, she'll die in 2 years. Everything will belong to you.
And still you didn't marry?
I did, because they wanted me to change my religion. You have to be a Muslim to get married. So they said, So, yeah.
You haven't met his wife?
Sorry?
He hasn't met your wife.
Ah, true. So, right, 2 minutes left. Where was I? Yeah. So I cannot finish without telling you about Filipino nurses.
Oh my
The
God.
Filipino nurses there are excellent, very hardworking, but sort of they are secluded because many of them have families back home, and they are there in Saudi. They have to spend about 11 months or so without their husbands. So many of them fall in love, but that's not allowed in Saudi Arabia. But you can get married. If you want to live together, you can get married. So the Saudi embassy will allow you to get married a second time without disclosing your marital status back in the Philippines. So the Philippine embassy would allow you. So these girls would get married to another man in Saudi Arabia, live like husband and wife, bring up children. And my question to them was, what happens to this child when you go home and that guy goes home as well? Because they have families back home with children. And they spend years like that there. So they said, very simple, you never go on holidays together. So he goes separately, I go separately, someone is always there with the child. And you learn the language when you go there. So I made an effort to learn Arabic, and I did learn Arabic, and to an extent that once I had a very philosophical discussion with a young guy about life after death in Arabic, and I was amazed at how people can understand these things. And he was going on about, you Hindus burn your bodies after death and we bury our bodies. So when the day of judgment comes and God comes and brings us back to life, you will not go to heaven because you have burnt your heart. Whereas we are still there with our heart buried underground, and we will come back to life. So that is the command of language I had. But when I started, it was quite funny as well, because I was trying to explain to a patient that you must drink milk, you must eat fruits and blah blah blah. And I kept telling him, Ishrab Habib, Ishrab Habib. He kept laughing and I kept saying, Ishrab Habib. And then I didn't understand what the hell is going on. So I asked her, what's this? She said, because you are telling him, Ishrab Habib. Habib means wife. How can he drink his wife? You have to say, Ishrab Halib, doctor. Milk. Thank you very much.